Part 1. The Warning. The stars looked different from the bridge of the destroyer Indomitable. Commander Hyunwoo Kim stood with his hands behind his back, watching the endless void through the main viewport. His ship patrolled the outer edge of human territory, where Earth's influence met the unknown reaches of space. It was quiet out here. Too quiet. That was about to change. The communications officer turned in her seat. "Commander, we have incoming transmission. It's from Earth. Priority Alpha." Hyunwoo moved to the command console. Priority Alpha meant the message came directly from the UTC High Command. He pressed the button and Admiral Minho Choi's face appeared on the screen. The Admiral looked tired, older than Hyunwoo remembered from their last meeting 6 months ago. "Commander Kim, we have a situation. 3 days ago our scout ships made contact with an alien empire. They call themselves the Velkar. They're big, Hyunwoo. Hundreds of worlds under their control. Their ships are massive, more advanced than anything we've seen before." Hyunwoo felt his stomach tighten. Humanity had been expanding into space for 2 centuries, but they had never encountered another intelligent species. Until now. "What do they want, sir?" Hyunwoo asked. The Admiral's expression darkened. "Submission. They sent an ultimatum to Earth. We have 30 days to accept their rule or face destruction. Ambassador Yuna Lee is meeting with their war council right now. I'm sending you the coordinates. Get there fast. If things go wrong, you need to be ready." The transmission ended. Hyunwoo turned to his crew. "Navigation. Plot a course to these coordinates. Maximum speed. Engineering, I want the reactor at full power. Weapons, run diagnostics on every system we have." The Indomitable turned in space and jumped to faster than light speed. The journey would take 18 hours. Hyunwoo didn't sleep during that time. He studied everything the scouts had gathered about the Velkar. Their empire was ancient, over 3,000 years old. They had conquered dozens of species. None had ever successfully resisted them. When the Indomitable dropped out of FTL, Hyunwoo saw the Velkar flagship for the first time. It was enormous, easily 10 times the size of his destroyer. The ship looked like a massive blade, all sharp angles and dark metal. Around it floated dozens of smaller warships, each still larger than anything humanity had built. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Ambassador Lee," the communications officer said. Ambassador Yuna Lee appeared on screen. She was inside the Velkar flagship, standing in what looked like a grand chamber. Behind her, Hyunwoo could see alien figures. The Velkar were tall, reptilian creatures with scales that shimmered in colors of deep purple and black. Their eyes were cold and calculating. "Commander Kim, maintain position but stay alert," Yuna said calmly. She turned to address the Velkar War Council. The largest of them, wearing elaborate armor decorated with symbols of rank, stepped forward. "I am War Master Thelvan of the Velkar Empire. You stand before the representatives of the Grand Imperator, ruler of 400 worlds, conqueror of 50 species. Your species is young and weak. You will accept imperial rule. You will provide tribute. You will serve. There is no alternative." Yuna stood perfectly still. When she spoke, her voice was ice. "War Master, I speak for humanity and the United Terran Coalition. We have reviewed your ultimatum. Our answer is no. We will not submit. We will not serve. We govern ourselves." The Velkar War Council erupted in what Hyunwoo assumed was laughter. It sounded like rocks grinding together. War Master Thelvan's eyes narrowed. "You refuse? You who have barely left your home system? You who have existed in space for less than 3 of our generations? You refuse the mercy of the Empire?" Yuna took a step forward. "I'm not here to refuse your mercy, War Master. I'm here to give you a warning. Turn your fleets around. Leave human space. Go back to your empire and forget you ever found us. Because if you attack us, if you bring war to our worlds, you will regret it. We are giving you one chance. Run. You do not want to face humanity in battle." The chamber fell silent. For a long moment, none of the Velkar moved. Then War Master Thelvan threw his head back and roared with laughter. The other council members joined him. "You warn us? You threaten the Velkar Empire. We have crushed civilizations 1,000 times more powerful than yours. We have turned entire worlds to ash. Your warning is the bleeding of prey before the predator strikes." Yuna's expression didn't change. "Then you have chosen. Remember that we warned you. Remember that we gave you a chance to walk away." She turned and walked out of the chamber. Hyunwoo watched through the viewport as a shuttle launched from the Velkar flagship and returned to the Indomitable. When Yuna arrived on the bridge, she looked exhausted. They didn't listen, she said quietly. No, Ambassador. They didn't. Hyunwoo pulled up the tactical display. We're detecting movement in the Velkar fleet. They're forming up. Back on Earth, in the command center beneath Geneva, Admiral Choi received the report. The Velkar were mobilizing their forces. Intelligence suggested 75 capital ships were already moving toward human territory. The invasion would begin within a week. The Admiral gathered his senior staff. Among them was General Seojin An from Strategic Command, Marshal Taehyun Song from the Marines, and Dr. Soyeon Kwan from the Classified Weapons Division. They rejected our warning, Admiral Choi said. The Velkar are coming. They think we're weak. They think we're easy prey. Marshal Taehyun leaned forward. Let them come. We've been preparing for this scenario since we first detected alien signals 20 years ago. We hoped we'd never need to use what we've built. But if they force our hand... Dr. Soyeon looked troubled. Admiral, the weapons we've developed, they're designed for total war. If we use them, the casualties will be massive. Are we certain there's no diplomatic solution? Ambassador Lee tried, Admiral Choi replied. She gave them a clear warning. They chose to ignore it. Now we have to protect Earth and every human colony. General An, initiate the Sentinel Protocol. General Seojin nodded grimly. Understood, sir. All military units are being moved into position. We're activating the defense grids around Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies. Commander Kim's destroyer will serve as forward observation. On the Indomitable, Hyunwoo received new orders. His mission was to track the Velkar fleet and report their movements. He was not to engage unless absolutely necessary. The real battle would happen closer to home. Captain Jisoo Park sat in the cockpit of her fighter, running final checks on her systems. She was the best pilot in the UTC Navy, commander of Phoenix Wing, an experimental squadron equipped with humanity's newest weapons. Around her, 11 other fighters prepared for launch. They were stationed on a hidden base in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Phoenix Wing, this is command, a voice said through her helmet. The Velkar fleet has entered human space. They're heading for Proxima Centauri. That's where we'll make our first stand. Launch when ready. Jisoo felt her heart race. This was it. Humanity's first war against an alien species. She thought about Ambassador Lee's warning to the Velkar. They had been told to run. They had laughed instead. Phoenix Wing launch, Jisoo commanded. Her fighter shot out of the hangar, followed by the rest of her squadron. They accelerated toward the jump point, ready to show the Velkar why humanity had warned them. Back on Earth, billions of people went about their daily lives, unaware that war had begun. In the command center, Admiral Choi watched tactical displays showing the movement of both fleets. The Velkar had superior numbers and larger ships, but humanity had something else. They had centuries of experience in warfare, brutal lessons learned from fighting each other across Earth's bloody history. The Admiral opened a secure channel to all military commanders across human space. This is Admiral Choi. The Velkar Empire has rejected peace. They're bringing war to our worlds. We gave them fair warning. We told them to run. They chose to fight instead. Now we show them what humanity is capable of. Activate all defensive protocols. Prepare for engagement. And remember, we fight not for conquest or glory. We fight to survive. Command out. The pieces were moving into position. The Velkar fleet, confident and powerful, advanced toward what they thought would be an easy victory. They had no idea what was waiting for them. They had no idea that humanity's warning was not a bluff. They were about to learn the hard way why you should listen when someone tells you to run. Part 2. The first blood, the Velkar fleet arrived at Proxima Centauri like a storm. 75 massive warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Their admiral, a decorated warrior named Krelthar, stood on the bridge of his flagship and smiled. Before him floated a small human colony and just 12 defending ships. This will be over quickly, Krelthar announced to his crew. The humans are either brave or foolish. Either way, they will learn to fear the Empire. What Admiral Krelthar didn't know was that those 12 ships were exactly where they were supposed to be. Commander Hyunwoo Kim sat quietly in the captain's chair of the Indomitable, watching his tactical display. Hidden in the asteroid field behind the colony were 30 more human ships, their engines cold, their weapons charged and waiting. Lieutenant Junho Nam, the young tactical officer, looked nervous. Sir, they outnumber us 6-1. Even with the ambush, those are difficult odds. Hyunwoo kept his eyes on the screen. The odds would be difficult if we were fighting fair. We're not. Lieutenant, signal Phoenix Wing. Tell Captain Park she's cleared to engage. 50,000 kilometers away, Captain Jisoo Park received the signal. She gripped her fighter's controls and spoke into her radio. Phoenix Wing, this is Phoenix Leader. We are weapons free. Remember your training. Hit fast, hit hard, and get out. For Earth. For Earth, her squadron echoed. The Velkar fleet began their attack run. Their ships moved in the traditional Imperial formation, a strategy refined over thousands of years of conquest. It was a formation designed to concentrate firepower while protecting the flagship. It had never failed them before. The human defending ships fired first, their missiles streaking across space. The Velkar point defense systems came alive, shooting down most of the incoming projectiles. Admiral Krelthar watched the human missiles explode harmlessly against his shields. Pathetic, he muttered. Forward ships, return fire. Destroy those vessels. The Velkar dreadnoughts fired their main weapons, massive energy beams that could cut through a mountain. But the human ships were fast, much faster than their size suggested. They scattered, dodging and weaving. Still, 3 human vessels took direct hits. Their shields collapsed and their hulls broke apart. Advancing to finish them, Admiral Krelthar ordered. That was when the trap closed. Jisoo's fighter squadron emerged from behind a massive asteroid, their engines burning bright. They came in low and fast, too small for the Velkar's main weapons to track effectively. Each fighter carried a weapon the Velkar had never seen before. Plasma lances developed specifically for this kind of combat. The Velkar shields were designed to disperse energy beams and deflect solid projectiles. The plasma lances did something different. They focused superheated matter into a tight stream, delivered at close range. Jisoo fired first, her lance cutting through the shield of a Velkar cruiser like it wasn't there. The plasma burned straight through the ship's armor and into its reactor core. The cruiser exploded from the inside out. All wings, fire at will. Jisoo shouted. Phoenix Wing dove into the Velkar formation. 11 more plasma lances fired. 11 more Velkar ships found their shields useless. The aliens scrambled to respond, but their massive ships were too slow to track the small, agile human fighters. On the Indomitable, Hyunwoo saw his moment. All ships power up and attack. Target the dreadnoughts. Fire railguns. The hidden human fleet came to life. Their engines ignited and they burst from the asteroid field. The Velkar admiral barely had time to react before the human railguns fired. These weapons were simple but devastating. They used powerful magnets to launch solid tungsten rods at incredible speeds, close to the speed of light. The rods had no explosives, no warheads. They didn't need them. The kinetic energy alone was enough to destroy anything they hit. 3 tungsten rods struck 3 different Velkar dreadnoughts. The first rod punched through the dreadnought's shields and armor, passed through 12 decks and exited out the other side. The ship's entire middle section simply vaporized from the heat generated by the impact. The dreadnought broke in half. The second and third rods had similar effects. In less than 10 seconds, 3 of the Empire's most powerful warships were turned into debris. Admiral Krelthar stared in shock. What are these weapons? How are they penetrating our shields? His sensor officer shouted a warning. Admiral, detecting multiple small contacts. They're everywhere. Wing Commander Do-Yun Han had been waiting for 3 days in the cold of space. His stealth corvettes had drifted into position long before the Velkar arrived, their engines off, their hulls coated with materials that absorbed sensor scans. The Velkar fleet had passed right by them without knowing they were there. Now Do-Yun gave the order his crews had been waiting for. All ships launch missiles. Full spread. 6 corvettes launched their entire payload at once. 2,000 missiles erupted from their launch tubes. The missiles were small, barely larger than a person, but there were so many of them. They spread out in a massive swarm, each one guided by its own computer, each one capable of changing direction to chase its target. The Velkar point defense systems went into overdrive. Energy beams and small caliber guns tried to shoot down the incoming swarm. They destroyed hundreds of missiles, but hundreds more got through. The missiles slammed into Velkar ships from every angle, overwhelming their shields through sheer numbers. Explosions rippled across the enemy fleet. Smaller Velkar vessels, destroyers, and frigates were torn apart. Even the larger ships took heavy damage as missiles found weak points in their armor and detonated inside. Admiral Krelthar's flagship shook from multiple impacts. Alarms blared across the bridge. "Damage report," he shouted. "Shields at 40%. Hull breaches on deck 7 through 12. We've lost 2 main weapons." The Admiral couldn't believe what was happening. His fleet was being destroyed. The humans were using tactics he had never seen before. They didn't fight with honor. They didn't engage in traditional ship-to-ship combat. They used tricks and ambushes and weapons designed specifically to counter Velkar technology. Commander Hyunwoo watched the battle unfold on his tactical display. The plan was working. The Velkar expected a certain kind of fight, and humanity had given them something completely different. But Hyunwoo took no pleasure in the destruction. He had studied the Velkar crew manifests. Each of those dying ships held hundreds of living beings. "Sir, the enemy fleet is breaking formation," Lieutenant Junho reported. "They're trying to retreat." "Let them go," Hyunwoo said quietly. "Signal all ships to cease fire. We've made our point." Captain Jisoo led Phoenix Wing back to their carrier, her hands still shaking from adrenaline. She had lost 2 pilots in the battle, 2 friends who would never come home. The victory felt hollow. When the shooting stopped, Admiral Krelthar counted his losses. 27 ships destroyed, 15 more so badly damaged they could barely move, and the humans had lost only 3 vessels. It was impossible. It was unthinkable. The Velkar Empire had not suffered a defeat like this in 1,000 years. He opened a channel to the Grand Imperator, back on the Empire's homeworld. "Your Majesty, we have engaged the humans. We were defeated." The Grand Imperator's response came hours later, after the surviving Velkar fleet had retreated to the edge of the system. "Defeated? By primitives? Explain yourself, Admiral." "They fight like nothing we have encountered before, Majesty. They use ambush and surprise. Their weapons bypass our shields. They attack from multiple directions at once and—" Krelthar hesitated. "They warned us. The human ambassador warned us not to fight them." I thought she was bluffing. The Grand Imperator was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, and his voice was cold with rage. "One battle does not make a war, Admiral. You faced a prepared defense. You fell into a trap. But the Empire has infinite resources. We will return with a fleet so large the humans cannot stop it. Assemble every available ship. We will crush them with overwhelming force." Back on Earth, Dr. Soyeon Kwan reviewed the battle data in her laboratory. The weapons she had helped design worked exactly as predicted. The plasma lances, the railguns, the swarm missiles, all of them performed perfectly. She should have felt proud. Instead, she felt sick. "We used less than 10% of our arsenal," she said to her assistant. "The Velkar lost almost half their attack fleet and we barely revealed our full capabilities." Her assistant nodded. "They still don't understand what they're facing, do they?" "No," Dr. Soyeon replied. "They think this was our best effort. They think if they come back with more ships, they can win through numbers. They don't realize that we've been preparing for interstellar war since before we ever met another species. Every weapon we built assuming we'd face an enemy more advanced than us." Admiral Choi called a meeting of the War Council. Commander Hyunwoo joined via video link from the Indomitable. Marshal Tae-hyun attended in person, along with General Seojin and Ambassador Yuna. "The battle at Proxima Centauri is being celebrated as a great victory," Admiral Choi said. "But I don't think this is over. The Velkar will come back. The question is, how hard do we hit them when they do?" "We gave them a warning," Yuna said. "We told them to run. They attacked us anyway. If they come back, they're making a conscious choice to continue this war." Part 3. The Empire's Fury. The Grand Imperator of the Velkar Empire stood in his throne room, surrounded by holographic displays showing star maps and fleet positions. His scales, normally a deep purple, had turned almost black with rage. Before him knelt what remained of his war council, including the defeated Admiral Krelthar. "You were given the finest ships in the Empire," the Imperator said, his voice dangerously quiet. "You had superior numbers. You faced an inferior species, and you failed." Admiral Krelthar kept his eyes on the floor. "Your Majesty, the humans fight unlike any species we have encountered. They use tactics that violate every principle of honorable combat. They hide, they ambush, they strike from unexpected angles. Their technology counters our shields and armor. We were not prepared." The Grand Imperator circled the kneeling admiral slowly. 3,000 years. For 3,000 years, the Velkar Empire has dominated this region of space. We have conquered 50 species. None have ever defeated us in open battle. And now, A species that has barely learned to travel between stars makes fools of our finest warriors. He stopped walking and made a decision. Assemble the Grand Armada. I want every available warship, every carrier, every dreadnought. I want 300 capital ships and 5,000 support vessels. I will personally lead this fleet. We will travel to Earth itself and burn their home world to ash. No more warnings, no more mercy. Humanity will be erased. The War Council members looked at each other with worry. The Grand Armada had not been assembled in over 500 years. The last time it sailed, an entire civilization was wiped from existence, but none of them dared to question the Imperator's decision. Across human space, Ensign Bora Shin sat at her communications station on a listening post near the border of Velkar territory. Her job was to monitor enemy transmissions and watch for any signs of military movement. She was young, only 23, and this was her first real assignment after graduating from the academy. When the encrypted Velkar transmissions started flooding her screens, she almost missed their significance. But then her computer began translating fragments of the messages. Words like Grand Armada and full mobilization and Earth assault jumped out at her. Bora's hands shook as she opened a priority channel to Earth. Command, this is Listening Post Delta 7. I'm detecting massive Velkar military communications. They're mobilizing everything. I think they're planning to attack Earth directly. At Strategic Command on Earth, General Seojun An received the report and immediately pulled up every intelligence source available. Spy satellites near Velkar space confirmed what Ensign Bora had detected. Hundreds of ships were moving, gathering at a staging point just outside human territory. The numbers were staggering. General Seojun called an emergency meeting. Within an hour, the entire War Council was assembled in the command center. Admiral Choi looked at the tactical displays showing the size of the approaching Velkar fleet and felt a chill run down his spine. 300 capital ships, he said quietly. Even with our technological advantages, those numbers could overwhelm us through sheer mass. If they reach Earth, they won't reach Earth, Marshal Taehyun said firmly. We'll stop them before they get that far. We have defensive positions throughout the system. We can bleed them at every step. Dr. Soyeon studied the fleet composition. They're bringing everything. This isn't a military expedition anymore. This is an extinction fleet. The Grand Imperator means to wipe us out completely. Ambassador Yuna looked tired. The diplomatic approach had failed completely. She had tried to warn the Velkar, tried to give them a way out. Now millions of lives hung in the balance. I need to try one more time, she said. Let me contact them. Maybe I can make them understand what will happen if they continue this. Admiral Choi nodded. Make the attempt, but be prepared for them to reject it. Yuna went to the communications room and opened a channel on every frequency the Velkar used. Her message was broadcast across space, aimed at the gathering armada. This is Ambassador Yuna Lee of the United Terran Coalition. I am addressing the Grand Imperator and all forces under his command. You were warned once before. You attacked us and lost. Now you gather an even larger fleet. I am telling you again, turn back. We do not want this war. We do not want to kill your soldiers. But if you bring your fleet to Earth, if you threaten our home world, we will use every weapon at our disposal. Please, for the sake of your own people, for the sake of all the lives that will be lost, turn back now. The response came directly from the Grand Imperator himself. His image appeared on screens across Earth's command center. He was massive, even for a Velkar, his ceremonial armor glittering with jewels and precious metals. Ambassador Lee, I remember you. You stood before my War Council and issued threats. You warned us to fear your primitive species. We laughed at you then. We are not laughing now, but neither are we afraid. You defeated one fleet through trickery and ambush. You will not trick the Grand Armada. You will not ambush me. I am coming to your home world with overwhelming force. Humanity will be erased. Your worlds will become imperial provinces. Your warnings mean nothing. You are prey. We are predators. That is the natural order. The transmission ended. Yuna stood silently, knowing she had done everything possible to prevent what was coming. She returned to the command center where the War Council waited. He rejected the warning, she said simply. Marshal Taehyun slammed his fist on the table. Then we use everything. No holding back. We deploy every defensive system, every weapon, every trick we have. If the Grand Imperator wants war, we'll give him war. Admiral Choi looked at his senior officers one by one. There is one option we haven't discussed yet. Project Hammer. The room fell silent. Everyone knew about the hammer. It was humanity's ultimate weapon system. A plan so devastating that it had been kept classified from everyone except the highest levels of command. Using it would result in casualties on a scale that humanity had not seen since the nuclear wars of the 21st century. Dr. Soyan spoke carefully. The hammer was designed as a last resort. It's meant to protect Earth if every other defense fails. Are we certain this is the right time? General Seojun pulled up tactical projections. If we fight the Grand Armada conventionally, even with our advantages, we'll lose at least half our fleet. The battle will reach Earth's orbit. Billions of civilians will be at risk. But if we deploy the hammer, he paused, we can destroy the majority of their fleet before they even reach Mars. The war ends in a single battle. Commander Hyunwoo joined the meeting via video link from the Indomitable. Sir, requesting permission to speak freely. Go ahead, Commander, Admiral Choi said. The Velkar soldiers in that fleet are following orders. Most of them probably don't even want this war. If we use the hammer, hundreds of thousands of them will die. Can we live with that? Can we live with losing Earth? Marshal Taehyun shot back. Can we live with human cities burning? Commander, I respect your conscience, but we warned them, twice. The ambassador gave them every chance to walk away. The Grand Imperator chose this. His soldiers chose to follow him. What happens next is on them, not us. Admiral Choi called for a vote. All in favor of deploying the hammer? One by one, every member of the War Council raised their hand. Even Commander Hyunwoo, though he did so slowly and with visible reluctance. The vote was unanimous. Very well, Admiral Choi said. He entered his authorization code into the secure terminal. I am activating Project Hammer. May whatever gods exist forgive us for what we're about to do. Across the solar system, secret military installations received encrypted orders. On hidden bases built into asteroids, on the dark side of moons, in stations disguised as mining operations, human military personnel began final preparations for the hammer. Many of them had trained for years for this moment, never knowing if it would actually come. Captain Minji Kang worked in intelligence coordination, analyzing the approaching Velkar fleet and calculating optimal deployment patterns for the hammer. She had helped design this operation, had run simulations hundreds of times. The math was elegant, the strategy was perfect, but knowing that it was about to be used for real made her feel sick. Target tracking is locked, she reported to Admiral Choi. The Velkar fleet is moving in the standard Imperial formation. They're not even trying to hide their approach. They think overwhelming numbers are enough. It would be enough against most enemies, Admiral Choi replied. But we're not most enemies. Good work, Captain. Make sure every team has the latest targeting data. The Velkar Grand Armada entered the outer edges of the Sol system 3 days later. The Grand Imperator stood on the bridge of his super dreadnought, the largest warship ever built by his empire. Around him sailed 300 capital ships, 5,000 support vessels, and 1 million of the Empire's finest warriors. At last, the Grand Imperator said, the humans thought they could warn us away. They thought their little victory at Proxima Centauri meant something. Now they will see true power. Advance the fleet. Head straight for Earth. We will blockade their homeworld and force their surrender. What the Grand Imperator didn't know was that his fleet formation, unchanged for thousands of years, perfectly matched the tactical scenarios human commanders had been studying for Emiami. Part 4. The Hammer Falls. The Velkar Grand Armada moved through the outer Sol system like an unstoppable wave. 300 capital ships in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming in the distant sunlight. On the bridge of his super dreadnought, the Grand Imperator watched the tactical displays with satisfaction. Mars was just ahead. Earth beyond that. Victory was within reach. Majesty, our sensors are detecting unusual readings throughout the system, his sensor officer reported. There are thousands of small objects on intercept courses, asteroids, ice fragments, pieces of debris. They appear to be moving under power. The Grand Imperator frowned. Moving under power? What are you talking about? On Earth's moon, Private Sunwoo Park stood at his observation post, watching the distant stars. He had been stationed on Luna for 6 months, one of thousands of Marines assigned to protect humanity's oldest colony. His commanders had told him something big was about to happen, but they hadn't explained what. Then he saw the sky start to move. Colonel Jiho Ryu commanded the massive orbital fortress called Aegis Prime, positioned in high orbit above Earth. His fortress was one of 12 similar installations surrounding the planet, each one bristling with weapons and sensors. He had spent the last week coordinating with every other defensive installation in the system. All stations, this is Aegis Prime Actual, Colonel Jiho broadcast. Project Hammer is now active. Begin execution sequence. May humanity forgive us for what we're about to do. What the Velkar Empire didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that humanity had spent 2 centuries preparing for this exact scenario. Every major asteroid in the belt between Mars and Jupiter had been mapped, studied, and quietly equipped with hidden engines and guidance systems. Every piece of space debris larger than a car had been catalogued and fitted with thrusters. Ice chunks from Saturn's rings, rocks from the outer system, even the remains of old satellites, all of it had been turned into potential weapons. For over 100 years, human engineers had worked in secret, slowly and carefully turning the entire Sol system into one massive defensive weapon. The hammer wasn't a single device. It was thousands of objects, all controlled by a sophisticated network, all ready to be used as kinetic projectiles. The Grand Imperator finally understood what he was seeing on his sensors. Those aren't natural orbital patterns. They're attacking us with space debris? Evasive maneuvers, he shouted. All ships scatter formation. Point defense to maximum power. But it was too late. The Velkar fleet was in the middle of the asteroid belt, and the belt was waking up. A 5-kilometer-wide asteroid, one that had drifted peacefully in orbit for millions of years, suddenly fired hidden engines. It accelerated directly toward a Velkar dreadnought. The dreadnought's crew saw it coming and tried to move, but their massive ship was too slow. The asteroid hit with the force of a nuclear weapon. The dreadnought's shields flared and collapsed. The asteroid didn't stop. It punched through the ship's armor, through 12 decks of corridors and equipment and crew quarters, and out the other side. The dreadnought broke apart, its 2 halves tumbling away in different directions. That was just the beginning. Hundreds of asteroids, thousands of smaller rocks, ice chunks, debris, all of it converged on the Velkar fleet from every direction. Some objects had been accelerated to incredible speeds. Others moved slower but were large enough that their mass alone was devastating. The Velkar point defense systems fired frantically, destroying many of the incoming projectiles, but there were too many targets coming from too many angles. A Velkar battlecruiser was hit by a swarm of smaller debris, each piece moving at orbital velocity. The impacts shredded its shields and tore open its hull. Another capital ship took a direct hit from a chunk of ice the size of a building, launched from Saturn's rings weeks ago and accelerated to nearly the speed of light. The ice vaporized on impact, but the energy released was enough to split the ship in half. Captain Jizu Park led Phoenix Wing into the chaos. Her fighter squadron had been waiting on the far side of Mars, ready to exploit the confusion. Phoenix, Wing, weapons free. Target the command ships while their shields are down. Her plasma lances fired, cutting through Velkar vessels that were too busy trying to avoid asteroid impacts to defend against fighter attacks. She dove between 2 capital ships, rolled her fighter to avoid debris, and fired again. Another Velkar ship lost its bridge in a flash of superheated plasma. But this was only the first phase of the hammer. The real strike was still coming. Commander Hyunwoo's destroyer, the Indomitable, had positioned itself along with the entire human battle fleet in a carefully calculated formation. Every ship had spent days plotting firing solutions, coordinating with every other vessel, ensuring that their next attack would be perfectly synchronized. All ships report ready, sir, Lieutenant Junho said from his tactical station. Hyunwoo took a deep breath. This is it. Signal the fleet. Fire on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. Every human warship in the Sol system fired simultaneously, but they didn't fire at the Velkar ships. Instead, they fired at precisely calculated points in empty space, points that Captain Minji Kang's intelligence team had determined would create a specific effect. Dozens of fusion warheads detonated in a coordinated sequence. Each explosion was carefully timed and positioned. The expanding shockwaves from the detonations didn't spread randomly. Instead, They channeled through the Velkar formation, like water flowing through a pipe. The effect was similar to a shaped charge. All that explosive energy, instead of spreading out in every direction, was focused and directed by the positions of the detonations. The shockwave traveled through the Velkar fleet with devastating force. The Grand Imperator's super dreadnought sat at the center of the formation, the traditional position of honor for the commanding officer. It was the strongest ship in the fleet, designed to withstand any attack. But it had never been designed to withstand this. The shockwave hit like the fist of an angry god. The super dreadnought's shields collapsed instantly. The wave of force crushed armor plating, shattered bulkheads, and tore through the ship from bow to stern. Secondary explosions rippled across its hull as systems overloaded and ammunition stores detonated. The Grand Imperator was thrown from his command chair. Alarms screamed throughout the ship. "Damage report," he shouted. "All systems failing. Hull, breaches on every deck. We've lost main power. Life support is critical." Around the flagship, dozens of other Velkar ships suffered similar fates. The coordinated detonation had been calculated to maximize damage to ships in the traditional Imperial formation. It was a formation that had won countless battles, but now it had become a death trap. Private Sunwoo watched from his lunar observation post as the battle unfolded in the distance. He couldn't see the individual ships, but he could see the flashes of explosions, thousands of them, like a deadly firework display across the solar system. He whispered a prayer for the souls of everyone dying up there, human and Velkar alike. Marshal Taehyun Song led the Marine boarding teams into action. "All assault pods, launch. Target the crippled ships. We need prisoners for intelligence." Marines in armored suits rocketed across space in small pods, heading for damaged Velkar vessels. They breached hulls and stormed through corridors, fighting hand-to-hand with Velkar warriors. The battles inside the ships were brutal and close range, exactly the kind of combat that humanity had centuries of experience with. Wing Commander, Doyenhan's stealth corvettes emerged from hiding once again, adding to the chaos. They launched more swarm missiles into the Velkar fleet, which was now scattered and disorganized, unable to form effective defensive lines. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it finally ended, the Sol system was filled with debris. 2/3 of the Velkar Grand Armada had been destroyed. Of the 300 capital ships that entered the system, only 94 survived, and most of those were badly damaged. The Grand Imperator's super dreadnought was crippled but intact. Its crew managed to restore minimal power and begin emergency repairs. The Imperator himself stood on what remained of his bridge, staring at the tactical displays showing the destruction of his fleet. "How?" he whispered. "How did they do this?" His surviving sensor officer pulled up data on the human attack. "Majesty, they turned their entire star system into a weapon. Every asteroid, every piece of debris, all of it was prepared in advance. They've been planning this for years, maybe decades, and their coordinated attack, the mathematical precision required, is beyond anything we've ever seen." The Grand Imperator felt something he had never experienced in his long life. True fear. "Open a channel to the human command." Admiral Choi's face appeared on the screen. The human admiral looked tired, almost sad. "Grand Imperator, I assume you're ready to discuss terms of surrender?" "What manner of species are you?" the Grand Imperator asked. "We are an empire 3,000 years old. We have conquered 50 species. We have never been defeated like this. What are you?" Admiral Choi's expression was grim. "We are a species that has been at war with itself for our entire existence. We have fought over land, resources, religion, ideology, and sometimes for no good reason at all. We have killed each other with every weapon we could invent, from sharpened sticks to nuclear bombs." Part 5, The Price of Victory. Commander Hyun-Woo Kim walked through the captured Velkar cruiser in silence. Emergency lights flickered in the damaged corridors. The air smelled of burned electronics and something else, something organic and terrible. Bodies of Velkar crew members lay where they had fallen when the ship lost pressure. They were young, Hyun-Woo realized. Many of them looked barely old enough to be soldiers. One of the dead warriors still clutched a picture in his clawed hand. Hyunwoo couldn't read Velkar writing, but he understood what the image showed. A family, children, a home the warrior would never see again. Lieutenant Junho found him standing there. "Sir, Marshal Song wants all captured ships searched for intelligence data. Should I organize the teams?" Hyunwoo nodded slowly. "Yes. But Junho, make sure our people treat the Velkar bodies with respect. They were soldiers following orders. They deserve dignity. 43 human ships had been lost in the battle, 17,000 people dead. On Earth, memorial services were being planned. But there was no time to mourn yet. The war might be over, but its consequences were just beginning." Dr. Soyeon Kwon sat in her laboratory, reviewing battle data with an expression that worried her assistants. The weapons she had helped design had performed exactly as intended. The hammer had worked perfectly. Hundreds of thousands of Velkar warriors were dead because of her calculations, her designs, her mathematics. "Are you okay, Doctor?" her young assistant asked. Soyeon looked up. Her eyes were red. "I made the calculations that killed all those people. I'm brilliant at destruction. What does that make me?" "It makes you the person who saved Earth," her assistant replied quietly. Across human space, the debate raged. Some celebrated the victory as proof of humanity's strength and ingenuity. Others felt sick at the scale of destruction. The news showed footage of the battle, carefully edited to remove the most graphic scenes. Public opinion was divided. Councillor Haeun-yoon stood before the UTC assembly, her voice sharp with anger. "We became destroyers. We warned the Velkar to fear us, and when they didn't, we made that fear real. We turned our solar system into a death trap and killed hundreds of thousands of beings. Yes, they attacked us first. Yes, we warned them. But does that justify what we did? What kind of species have we become?" Admiral Choi sat in the audience, listening to the criticism. When his turn came to speak, he walked to the podium with heavy steps. "Councillor Yoon asks what kind of species we've become. I'll tell you. We're survivors. The Velkar Empire gave us an ultimatum: submit or die. We chose neither. We chose to defend ourselves with every tool at our disposal." He looked around the assembly chamber. "We gave them warnings. Ambassador Lee tried diplomacy. We demonstrated our capabilities at Proxima Centauri. We warned them again before they sent their Grand Armada. At every step, we gave them chances to stop. They chose to continue. The deaths in the Sol system are tragic. They haunt me. But they were necessary to save billions of lives on Earth." Marshal Tae-hyun spoke next, his voice firm. "I've fought in wars. I've seen what happens when you show weakness to an enemy. The Velkar Empire has conquered 50 species. They don't respect peace talks. They don't respond to gentle warnings. They understand force. We showed them force, and now they're willing to negotiate. Sometimes, unfortunately, that's the only language some people understand." The debate continued for hours, with no clear resolution. Humanity was struggling with what it had done and what it had proven itself capable of doing. Surgeon Commander Suman Park worked in the medical bay of the orbital hospital above Earth. She was treating Velkar prisoners, warriors pulled from damaged ships. Many of them were terrified, expecting torture or execution. Instead, they received medical care. One young Velkar soldier, barely conscious, grabbed Suman's arm. "Why?" he whispered in broken English. "Why help us? We came to destroy you." Suman adjusted his pain medication. "Because you're hurt. Because treating the wounded is what we do. And because this war is over. You're not our enemy anymore." The soldier's eyes filled with tears. In his entire life in the Empire, he had never seen an enemy treated with mercy. 3 weeks after the battle, Ambassador Yuna Lee and diplomat Jaewon-oh traveled to a neutral space station for the first formal negotiations with the Velkar Empire. The Grand Imperator came himself, though he was no longer truly an imperator. His own government had stripped much of his power after the disaster of the Grand Armada. He was now simply a representative, no different from Yuna. The meeting room was simple and undecorated. The two sides sat across from each other. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then the former Imperator broke the silence. Ambassador Lee, you tried to warn us. You told us to run. We should have listened. Yuna's expression remained neutral. Yes, you should have. Now we must deal with the consequences. Diplomat Jae-hwan presented the terms. The Velkar Empire would cede territory. They would pay reparations for the damage caused in their initial attack. Most importantly, any species within former Velkar space that wanted independence would receive it, and humanity would guarantee that independence. These terms are harsh, the Velkar representative said. They're fair, Jae-hwan replied. You started this war. You threatened to wipe out our species. The terms could have been much harsher. We could have demanded the dissolution of your entire empire. We didn't. We're not conquerors. We just want to make sure this never happens again. Captain Jisoo Park stood on the observation deck of the carrier that housed Phoenix Wing. Her squadron had lost 4 pilots in the battles, 4 friends she had trained with, flown with, and would never see again. She held their medals in her hand, preparing for the memorial service. Captain Minji Kang joined her. You okay? No, Jisoo said honestly. We won. Earth is safe. But it doesn't feel like victory. It just feels like loss. That's because you're human, Minji replied. If this felt good, if destroying that fleet made you happy, then we really would have become monsters. The fact that it hurts means we still have our humanity. 6 months after the battle, Commander Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, now promoted to captain. His ship patrolled the border of human space, watching for any signs of aggression. The Velkar Empire had honored the treaty so far. Their military was in disarray, their pride shattered. But the galaxy had noticed. Other species, some friendly, and some not, had seen what happened when the Velkar challenged humanity. Messages arrived daily. Some species wanted to establish diplomatic relations, others wanted military alliances. A few sent veiled threats. Lieutenant Junho, now promoted to commander and serving as Hyun-woo's first officer, reviewed the latest intelligence reports. Sir, we're detecting scout ships from at least 3 different species testing our borders. They want to see if we're as dangerous as the reports suggest. Hyun-woo sighed. What do you think we should do? The same thing we did with the Velkar, Junho replied. Warn them once. Give them a chance to back off peacefully. If they don't listen. He left the sentence unfinished. I hope it doesn't come to that, Hyun-woo said quietly. I hope we never have to use the hammer again. On Earth, life slowly returned to normal. The memorial services were held. The dead were honored. Families grieved. But humanity also built new ships, developed new weapons, and prepared for whatever came next. The galaxy knew about them now. There was no going back to being unknown. Ambassador Yuna sat in her office looking at reports from newly independent species in former Velkar territory. Many of them were grateful to humanity for their freedom. Others were cautious, worried that Earth would become the new empire, replacing the Velkar as the dominant power. Diplomat Jae-hwan entered with more reports. Ambassador, we're receiving requests from 17 species asking to join a defensive alliance with humanity. They want our protection. And what do we tell them? Yuna asked. That's the question everyone's asking, Jae-hwan replied. What do we do now? We proved we can destroy empires, but what kind of role do we want to play in the galaxy? That night, Admiral Choi gathered the War Council one final time to discuss the future. Commander Hyun-woo joined via video link. Marshal Tae-hyun, General Seojin, Dr. Soyeon, and Ambassador Yuna all attended in person. The question before us, Admiral Choi said, is what kind of species we want to be. The galaxy now knows we're dangerous. Some fear us, some want to ally with us, some will eventually challenge us. We need to decide how we respond. Dr. Soyeon spoke first. We have to be careful. We use terrible weapons to win this war. If we're not careful, we'll become the very thing we fought against. We'll become bullies, conquerors. But if we're too careful, Marshal Tae-hyun countered, if we appear weak, others will attack. We need to maintain our strength while showing restraint. It's a difficult balance. Ambassador Yuna had the final word. We warned the Velkar to run. They didn't listen and they paid the price. That warning wasn't a bluff, it wasn't false bravado. It was the truth. I think that's what we need to continue doing. Be honest. Be clear. Give everyone the same choice we gave the Velkar. Peace or war. But make sure they understand what war with humanity really means. The Council agreed. Humanity would maintain its military strength. It would help species that asked for help. It would form alliances based on mutual respect.